It seems unbelievable, but it really happened. Scientists have just pulled a 112-year-old camera from the ocean floor where the Titanic went down. Even with all the rust covering it, they were able to rescue the film that was still inside. What they found left everyone shocked. This wasn't just some random old object. It was like a quiet observer that recorded the Titanic's final hours. But here's what's weird. The camera wasn't in the right place. They discovered it nearly half a mile from the ship, stuck in the mud as if someone had deliberately put it there. After months of delicate restoration work, the handful of photos that made it through are almost ready to show. The specialists are anxious. Some are scared because whatever this camera recorded was never supposed to be discovered. The underwater vessel dove down into the black waters with its mechanical arm, slowly moving through the heavy mud that covered the wreck. The submarine's lights revealed pieces of history that had been lost at sea for more than 100 years. Bent metal and scattered personal items littered the ocean bottom. But then the crew spotted something amazing. A camera that looked remarkably well preserved, even though it was half covered in sediment. Despite decades of corrosion and enormous water pressure, its leather cover was nearly intact. It was a Kodak Brownie from 1912, a silent reminder of days before the ship's name became synonymous with disaster. Professional diver David Thompson watched the footage from the surface and felt uneasy. "Something's not right here," he whispered. He could tell when things were out of place, and this camera definitely shouldn't have been so far from any recognized debris. The camera lifted out of the mud without resistance, as though it had been sitting there waiting. The research vessel's team observed in silence. The camera appeared strange, almost too pristine, hardly touched by the passage of time. Once back at the surface, the crew treated the camera with extreme care. "The metal pieces are stained, but look at this leather strap," one technician said, flexing it slightly. "It's still bendable. That can't be right." The pressure and seawater should have reduced it to a corroded wreck, but it had lasted over a century underwater in remarkable shape. The team members exchanged worried glances. "Maybe it's not from the Titanic," one offered. "Could be some collector lost it recently." "There's only one way to know for sure," another murmured. "We have to examine the film." The crew fell silent. What would the film reveal if it hadn't been destroyed? The Titanic's last moments, the panic of the sinking, or just regular snapshots from a modern visitor? Under gentle lighting, the head specialist ran her fingers along the camera's outline. It bore no identifying marks to reveal its owner. Cameras like this were uncommon, costly, and bulky in 1912. Someone with a specific reason, perhaps a reporter or well-off passenger, would have carried it. The group debated their next move. Some urged caution, others pushed for immediate action. The film was fragile. One wrong move could ruin whatever images survived. But their real hesitation wasn't about technique. The unspoken worry was whether they truly wanted to see what that film contained. The captain asked for a vote. 6 crew members said proceed, 6 said wait. The captain decided to think about it overnight. The following morning, he announced his decision. They would process the film, and the team missed the last frame's timestamp. April 15th, 1912, 2:17 a.m. The precise moment the Titanic vanished under the ocean. The camera rested on a work table in the research ship's laboratory. The crew had secured it in a temperature-controlled container. The film inside was the true puzzle. According to scientific knowledge, old film should have completely deteriorated after soaking in salt water for more than a century. Yet there it sat, apparently unaffected by time. The first technician who attempted to open the camera had trembling hands inside his gloves. The clasp fought back, then released with a grudging snap. The film was wound tight, but when the technician tried to unwind it, the reel suddenly jammed as if something was holding it from within. On the second try, there was a splitting noise, and rust-colored dust spread across the table. Unlike ordinary rust, these particles arranged themselves in odd formations, resembling letters or markings. "What in the world is that?" the technician breathed. Dr. Margaret Stone, the lead specialist, moved closer with her face drained of color. She had examined countless artifacts from maritime disasters, but never anything like this. The rust was more than simple corrosion. It was something that had merged with the film itself. "Clear the room except for essential staff," Dr. Stone commanded. The flakes had gathered into groups that almost seemed legible, possibly a name or word that remained indecipherable. The team attempted to use a specialized scanner, but the device couldn't process it correctly. The display flickered with static until a distorted preview emerged, a smear of shadows that could have been human figures. As the night progressed, the exhausted team worked in rotation. Each attempt yielded more bizarre results. They retrieved data with impossible time markers and periods when the camera appeared to snap photos continuously for minutes at a time. "This is spiraling out of control," Dr. Stone mumbled to her assistant. "None of this adds up." By sunrise, the film's first clear image emerged, a warped close-up of a ship's handrail. But what made the room fall silent was the timestamp. April 15th, 1912, 2:20 a.m., 3 minutes after the Titanic's final plunge. This wasn't some modern tourist's vintage camera. This camera had been on the Titanic and somehow endured an entire century underwater. Incredibly, the film had survived as well. "This isn't a miracle," Dr. Stone whispered, shaking her head. As the others watched in silence, she scrawled one word in bold red letters on the storage box: "Cursed." Based on the ship's passenger records, Thomas Bradford was the only likely owner, a 28-year-old London reporter traveling in second class. But after April 15th, 1912, he disappeared from every record. No lifeboat assignment, no survivor accounts. The instant the Titanic sank, he simply vanished. Bradford's journal, recovered in 1987 from the wreckage, held routine observations until the final pages. The handwriting became erratic and blurred. The last entry stated, "The ship has hit an iceberg. I need to record this. I am photographing everything. God help me." That was all. No further explanation. The journal's last pages had been ripped away. Analysis revealed faint marks on the remaining paper, ghostly pressure traces from words written with such intensity they left impressions. "Look at this," the specialist showed her colleague. Someone was pressing so hard the pen almost pierced the paper. What could have driven him to write like that? Bradford's room gave him a clear view of the approaching iceberg, but no survivor recalled seeing a reporter with a camera that night. Thomas Bradford seemed to step out of existence the moment he pressed that first devastating shutter. The camera's identification number matched Kodak's 1912 records, purchased by a T. Bradford on Fleet Street. But researchers found no documentation of any reporter by that name working in 1912. Only a single old press credential, its photograph faded to gray mist where Bradford's face should have appeared. The laboratory staff noticed something in the camera's viewfinder. At specific angles, the glass seemed to retain an afterimage, a human silhouette standing just beyond the frame. "Do you see that?" one technician asked his colleague. "There's someone in there." The first salvaged photograph displayed the ship's timepiece reading 11:40 p.m., the exact instant of collision, and reflected in the lens was a fuzzy figure. Thomas Bradford had captured his story. He just never survived to share it. The restoration laboratory's computers failed 3 times before completing the initial scan. The film resisted every standard preservation method. Chemical treatments left unusual residues, and instruments detected abnormalities that couldn't exist. Kim, the senior archivist, recorded each malfunction. "This defies logic," she told her team. "The film responds strangely to regular development chemicals. Under magnification, the silver particles formed geometric designs instead of random deterioration." The digital team encountered difficulties. Images would display inverted. Data labels showed wrong dates, including timestamps from years in the future. Most disturbing were the file sizes. Each scan consumed exactly 47.47 megabytes, no matter what it contained. "These figures keep recurring," the lead technician muttered. 47.47, then 191.22, every single time. That's not right. Dr. Stone uncovered the most unsettling irregularity. The digital scans held an additional layer invisible to the naked eye, a rhythm occurring every 2 minutes and 20 seconds. When enhanced, these rhythms produced a frequency that ocean scientists recognized as the resonant frequency of the Titanic wreck site. "It's as if the wreck location itself is woven into these images," Dr. Stone explained. "How could that be possible?" On the 7th day, they had stabilized 12 scans. They refused to display them to anyone, not because of what the pictures showed, but because of what they omitted. Blank areas that should have contained something. The camera's inner workings presented their own enigma. X-rays revealed the frame counter showed exactly 47 exposures, a number that matched no known film format from 1912. The shutter speed was stuck at 1/47th of a second. Kodak had never manufactured shutters with that specification. "Everything about this camera is incorrect," Kim stated. "It shouldn't be real, but here it sits." The world watched anxiously as the first pictures appeared on news conference screens. Months of restoration had uncovered what no living soul had seen: the Titanic's last moments through a doomed passenger's perspective. The earliest photos seemed normal. Children played on deck, their faces glowing with joy. A woman clutched a basket of Irish lace, her body tilting as the deck began its first lean. The lace tumbled over the side, transforming an everyday moment into something remarkable because both would sink beneath the Atlantic within minutes. Then came the timepiece. Hands stopped at 2:17. The image's sharpness was unnatural. Every mark was clear, as if the camera had focused through pandemonium to capture time's last gasp. The grand staircase pictures drained the air from the room. Crystal light fixtures hung at crazy angles. One shot revealed water already touching the lower steps. The reflection in the wooden paneling showed people gripping railings above, something the camera hadn't directly photographed. "Dear God," a reporter gasped. You can make out their expressions. The lifeboat photos were horrifying. Boat number 14 dangled at a crooked angle, ropes partly cut. Faces gazed upward, not in fear, but in growing understanding. One woman's mouth made a perfect circle, gloved hands pressed against her face. Then the camera dove into horror. Early frames revealed hallways made surreal by their steep slant. The view exploded onto deck where chaos broke down into separate tragedies. A man attempting to smash open a locked life vest box. Mothers fighting to keep children above the rising water. "Look at that," someone gasped. "He's still photographing even as everything collapses around him." The camera swung toward the water. A dark wall of ocean swept across the deck, swallowing everything. A hand reached down before the lens struck water. Next came air bubbles and blackness. Then, impossibly, one final image. the ocean's surface seen from underneath, where the enormous ship should have been. Only empty water gazed back. The news conference ended in quiet. The final timestamp burned in everyone's memory. April 15th, 1912, 2:20:47, 3 minutes after the stern vanished. No one should have lived long enough to capture those 3 minutes. How did he shoot that final picture? A journalist eventually asked. He should have been gone. Every picture recorded a vital detail about the catastrophe. The timing matched precisely how long air pockets in the stern kept the wreck floating after it went under. But in that stunned instant, only one thing counted. They had observed a man's death. The actual recording of someone's final moments. And somehow, 112 years later, that death was still occurring. The film's discovery sent shockwaves around the globe. Historians were amazed as the pictures challenged long-accepted theories about the sinking. Ocean engineers examined the footage frame by frame, making their computer simulations outdated. Everything we believed we understood was incorrect, confessed one maritime specialist. These images reveal the true story. Doubters found it hard to believe the discovery was genuine. How could a delicate 1912 camera survive more than a century underwater? No one had satisfactory explanations. We're still attempting to comprehend it ourselves, Dr. Stone told journalists. According to all known scientific principles, this shouldn't be possible. They felt as though they were experiencing a bad dream. Had they really found such an artifact by accident? How would they go on with their lives after looking death in the eye? Survivors' family members cried during news briefings. Relatives stepped forward to recognize passengers. They weren't just names anymore. They were mothers, fathers, children, lost forever but never forgotten. The pictures made the tragedy personal in ways no debris could. The first-person viewpoint triggered worldwide discussions about ethical archaeology. "We're not examining history anymore," one journalist wrote. "We're intruding on someone's dying moments." Museums hurried to revise their exhibits. The famous Titanic clock display now included Bradford's 2:17 photograph next to it. 2 timepieces connected across centuries. Psychologists identified a new disorder called Titanic syndrome, the inability to see historical tragedies as distant events. The footage's final moments became cultural symbols for sudden loss. The expression 2:17 moment became common language, representing when normal life vanishes forever. "It's transformed how we view the past," one psychologist explained. "These weren't numbers anymore. They were real people, and we witnessed their deaths." As the camera was locked away, the argument continued. Had they saved history or violated a sacred boundary? The answer, like the Titanic itself, would stay in the depths forever. Did you like this story? Is it acceptable to watch someone pass away, even if it occurred a long time ago? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section. If you enjoyed this story, please consider subscribing to our channel and giving us a thumbs up. Remember, some things are best left undiscovered. Thanks so much for tuning in. See you in the next video and have an awesome day.